Hi everyone. Welcome to the Cozy Cardigans podcast. My name is Melanie. You can call me Mel. I am the owner and dyer for Big Little Yarn Co. But I'm currently on maternity leave, so the shop is closed right now. But I am coming to a screen near you from Hyogo, Japan. I live in a city about 15-minute train ride from Osaka, if you know where that is. And I live here with my husband Tim and my coming baby, who is due quite soon. So I'm not sure if this is the last podcast before he's born or if I'll get another one in, we'll see. But I wanted to talk about some knitting with you. I have two finished objects, and a lot of WIPS. So let's get started. I'll start with what I'm wearing first. So I showed this in my last episode. This is the Loimu cardigan by Ronja, and I always forget her last name. I'm so sorry. Everything that I talk about will be written down below in the description, and I'll also put like little subtitles for you. But this was a test knit. Let me get up and show you. So it's got these twisted rib stitches with bobbles and some eyelets. And I love it so much. Finished this a little bit, not a while back, but showed the FO to you last episode. I knit this with Mominoki yarns on the German Merino, which is a DK weight base, and it's a non-superwash merino, and I love the texture that it gives. It has quite a high twist to it, so the ribbing really pops really nicely. It'd be this. I really want to use this yarn again for some kind of cable thing. I think that would work really well. Like the tighter the twist, the more the stitches tend to pop on projects. So I really enjoyed working with this yarn. There's no buttons on it, it's just an open front cardigan. I did a little, did I do any mods? One mod I did, I obviously knit the sleeves a bit shorter. I have quite short arms, so I usually end up just knitting like maybe about 1 inch or so after the decreases, and then I start on the ribbing. So there's that. I also knit it a bit longer than called for in the pattern, just because I wanted to use up as much yarn as possible. So I think I was supposed to stop around here, but I knit like about, was that like 2 inches, 5 centimeters extra. I still ended up with a little bit of yarn, but I was trying to use up as much as possible. Other than that, I pretty much knit it to pattern because it was a test knit. So the pattern is not yet available. I'm not quite sure when it will be, but if I figure it out while I'm writing the description, I'll put it down below. So yeah, super happy with this. I was worried that it was gonna get a little too warm to wear this too much, but I've been wearing it a ton, and it's starting to become springtime here in Japan. There's sakura trees blooming. There's a few streets around the neighborhood where there's like a line of sakura or like plum. Sakura is not plum though. Sakura trees are peach trees, but there's also plum trees that have little plum blossoms on them, and they're starting to bloom around the neighborhood. So spring is coming, but it's still a little chilly. But yeah, so that's what I'm wearing. Okay, so finished objects. First one, I finished my stripy socks. So these I've been working on since forever. I feel like, I'm not quite sure when I started it, maybe in maybe February or January, late January, early February. But these were my, these are my snake socks. So I made these by knitting a long sock tube, and then I chopped it in half and then added the afterthought heel, toes, and cuffs. So yarn is Tiny Human Knits in her Morgan colorway. I love it so much. It's so fun. I love Laura's colorway so much. But and then the contrast color is my own Big Little Yarn Co. hand-dyed yarn. It is in the colorway Haru, which means spring in Japanese. But I had like a little 50-gram ball that I had just lying around, so I ended up using that. I think last episode I originally had like these scrappy bits, but then I found this ball and I thought it went really well together with these colors. So let's see, I used size US 1 7-inch circulars, so like those little tiny circulars, and it was my like train knitting, so whenever I was out and sitting on a train I would knit on it, which is why it took me so long. I never knit on it while I was at home. So and like when I'm at doctor's appointments and things like that, I have quite a bit to go to now, so I would knit on this. So yeah, let's see, US size 1 needles, 64 stitches. I think I'm going to decrease it to 60 next time. 64 is a little bit loose for me. I've knit a bunch of socks. I've knit so many socks, but I still don't have like a set kind of recipe that I like, or like stitch count that I like. I don't know, I just never remember. So I did 64, but I think it's a little too loose. I'll do 60 next time. Yeah, other than that, oh, and then the leg is a bit long, so I pretty much just knit the sock tube until I ran out of the main yarn. I think next time I'm just gonna measure like how far like about this much is, because it's a bit too long for me. I don't really wear long socks like this. I usually like socks that come up to maybe about here-ish. So these are a little long. I don't mind having scraps, because then I would really like to make like scrappy socks out of self-striping yarn scraps. So I wouldn't mind that. So next time, yeah, I'll probably just measure this, stick it in, put it in my notes somewhere, and then hopefully I remember for next time to not make the leg so long. But fits great. Just a regular like Kitchener stitch toe. Afterthought heel, as you can see, it's a bit loose looking, and that's actually on purpose. So I talk about this in one of my earlier, maybe like in December, one of my December podcast episodes, I'm not quite sure, but I do have a Ravelry project page where I have a notes on how I do this type of heel, but it's a afterthought heel with a gusset mod. So there's actually a gusset here, so you could kind of see like before these decreases start, you could see that little gusset, and then I knit like a couple rows in the round before I start the decreases, because I do have like quite a high arch in my foot, and regular afterthought heels, they just slip right off my heel and like they do not work out for me. It definitely, I have the kind of feet where I definitely need a little bit more room at the heel, so this works really well. Yeah, so I'll put the Ravelry project page with my mod notes in the description box for you. But yeah, these afterthought heels work great. For my next socks, I'm kind of want to experiment with maybe knitting a regular sock pattern as a sock tube. So since now I have the measurements of how much I need to knit the foot and how much I need to knit the leg, I'm thinking that theoretically you could knit a regular colorwork sock or a sock with like a specific stitch pattern or texture in the round, and then put a little lifeline or a marker line, I don't know what it's called, like a scrap yarn to mark where the heel would go, and then continue on to the foot and just make sure that the pattern only goes on the top half of the tube, and then mark where the toes would go, where you would chop it in half, if that makes sense. I feel like that would work. I'm not sure if it would work like in reality, because I do like knitting with, the reason why I want to make it a tube instead of 2 at a time, so I usually would knit 2 at a time if I were to knit socks with a stitch pattern. But the thing is, I've talked about it before, the thing is that when you're sitting on the train here in Japan, it's quite, there's a lot of, not rules, but you definitely have to be aware of your surroundings, and like it's quite quiet. It's like a library in there. It's very different from like a New York train, I would say, or like I've been on a train in on the BART in San Francisco. It's definitely not like that. Or Paris, I've been in there, but it's very quiet. You kind of respect the space of the people around you. So when I knit 2 at a time socks, like it's a long needle, cable needle, and then you have to kind of, it's very difficult to try to keep to yourself and not whap somebody with it, you know. So I preferred knitting with the sock tube because it's a very small project. You kind of just are stitching away, not bothering anybody. So I prefer knitting in a tube form just for that reason. And also for some reason it just goes by so much quicker, but I feel like that was because this was just a stockinette project versus something that's patterned. But yeah, I'm not sure how easy it would be to do like a stitch pattern sock with such small needles. I feel like maybe that might be hard on the fingers. I'm not sure, but yeah, that is that. So this is one FO. Another FO is another test knit. So you might have seen this on my Instagram, and I'll put pictures up if you don't have Instagram. But this is my, oops, got some wrinkles, Grass Whispers pullover by Teti of Teti's Knit Garden. Teti's Knit Garden, yeah. So this is a test knit. Pattern's coming April 15th, so quite soon. Yeah, I love it so much. It's so cozy. And here, let me just do a little close up. I did a very low contrast yoke, which I really like. Yeah, I really like the low contrast yoke, and I've seen some with high contrast and it's beautiful as well. But yeah, so this is the Grass Whispers pullover, and this is knit with worsted weight yarn. I knit the size 2, which is perfect. Couple of things is that in the pattern there is an option for this mock neck like this, or a turtleneck, which also includes kind of like these V-shaped cables to it. Maybe I'll put a image somewhere here, but I opted for the mock neck because I prefer mock necks, but the turtleneck is beautiful as well. And then yeah, and I really like these cables, and then there's this really nice ridge here. I really like this detail, this collar ridge, and then the cables go down and it goes into ribbing. So this is knit with worsted weight yarn. I used Knit Picks recycled wool. It's like a recycled wool that I've had in my stash for quite a long time. It's like this heathered beige color. And then the CC is my own Big Little Yarn Co. yarn in the colorway Rust on my Peruvian sock base, held double, so in order to make a worsted weight gauge. Let's see, some mods. One mod is the pattern in the pattern, the yoke comes quite close to the armpit. I don't know how else to say it, but it's a little bit more of a tighter fit if you look at Teti's pictures. I personally don't like when things are so close to my arms and like my armpit area. I prefer it to be a little bit looser here, just in general. So when I first separated for the sleeves, I knit like 5 inches of sleeve and maybe like 5 inches of the body. And then I tried it on and I realized it was way too tight for it to be comfortable for me. Like, it fit, but not in the way I like it. So I was like, should I rip it out? Should I not? And then I figured, you know, it's such a waste of this lovely yoke for me to make something that I don't really like the fit of. So I went ahead and ripped back all the way to where the ribbing ends, and then I actually knit about 1 inch extra, and then so like 2.5 centimeters extra, and then I split for the sleeves to make a little bit more extra room at the yoke armpit area here. And then I just made sure to note that when I was knitting the sleeves that it would be a tiny bit longer. It would start off a tiny bit longer. And also likewise, since I don't like such a tight fit around the arms, I find that a lot of pullover patterns for me personally I don't really like to start decreases. So not early, but early for me, I guess. Like a lot of patterns say knit 2 to 4 inches and then start the decreases, but I prefer to start the decreases where my elbows begin, because the shape of my arm is not like, it's been more straight and then stops at the elbow and then it kind of tapers off, versus a nice taper like this. So I ended up doing that. I knit straight until I hit the point of my elbow, which is about here where these wrinkles are. And then I did decreases. I spread out the required amount of decreases over the length of the rest of the sleeve, if that makes sense. So the decreases go a little bit faster. So, you know, instead of, for example, if it says start decreases start decreasing every 11th row until X amount of decreases are done. I usually do like maybe every 8 or 7 rows, something quicker, so that it tapers off a little bit faster, since the forearms for me personally taper or narrow quite quickly, I guess, because I have slender wrists, but my upper arms are quite larger compared to my wrists. I don't know, just from my experience. So that's what I did. So there's I did all my decreases in this section here, and then I think I knit for like 2 more inches, and then I did the ribbing. I hope that made some sense. But it's literally just like for my own fit, which is what I love about knitting, because you could just do whatever you need to do to make it fit perfectly for your own body. So yeah, that's what I learned about my arms for myself after lots of sweater knitting. I also did tubular bind off for all the ribbing, so sleeves, body, and then for the body, I usually preferred more cropped things, so it's kind of hard to show like it how it would look without my belly, but I usually would stop the sweater around here, I would say, because I wear a lot of high-waisted pants when I'm not pregnant. I do not fit in high-waisted pants right now, but since this is a worsted weight sweater, it's quite thick and cozy, and it didn't really make sense to make a cropped sweater out of something that would be so warm, because this is not really like a fingering weight sweater. It would make more sense to make it cropped, because it is a bit of a warmer weather sweater. But worsted weight sweater is definitely for chillier days when you want to be a bit more covered up, at least for me. So I made it a bit longer than I would, and it's like perfect. So yep, this is my Grass Whispers pullover test knit. Love it so much. Coming out April 15th. So that is my second FO. So quite productive this past week and a half. So current WIPs. One WIP is this. This is the WIP that I kind of paused because I signed up for the Grass Whispers test knit and also the Chalet Days sweater test knit. So I had to put this away because I signed up for 2 test knits at once. And I had to finish those, obviously. But this is the Amara sweater. The ribbing's looking kind of funny. I think my ribbing gauge was quite loose in the beginning for some reason. Anyways, so this is my Amara sweater. I'm trying to finish this before the baby's born because it is quite complicated and finicky, but I'm mostly the body is, so I'm glad I finished that. So let me start from the beginning. The Amara sweater by Rachel Knits Things, Rachel Kurihara. I love her designs. So this is technically a DK weight sweater. You can use a DK weight, or like me, I used a 1 strand of, I'm not sure if you can see, 1 strand of fingering and 1 strand of mohair. The fingering weight is my own Big Little Yarn Co. in the colorway Rust. Sorry, my rice cooker. In the colorway Rust. The Kid Silk Mohair lace is in the Patina colorway. I currently don't have Kid Silk Mohair in the shop. Well, my shop is closed, but when I did have it open, I didn't have it available because it was back when I was still in the US. I am hoping to bring back, but to bring in, to bring in Surrey alpaca lace so that I could do all the fuzzy knits. So that's the yarn. Knitting the size 2. This is a bottom up sweater and it's a bit more cropped, as you can see. And then let me see. So I just finished the front and back yesterday, and there is brioche, and then there's these cables. Yeah, it's super pretty. I love how the fingering weight and the lace marl together. I think it's more color correct back here. But yeah, it's so soft and light. And then I believe the sleeves are all just brioche, but I'm probably gonna do the collar next because I just want to get that over with. Yeah, no mods because it's such a complicated pattern. I really didn't want to mess with it. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say other than I'm really excited to wear it. But yeah, I'm trying to finish this before the baby's here because I'm pretty sure I won't have enough headspace to work on this pattern. It's quite complicated. It has three different cable charts, so you kind of have to flip through back and forth. But I think after a while it kind of gets a bit more intuitive. You just have to double check where you're at every now and then. But yeah, I really love this knit. So I've been working on that mostly these past couple days. So I'm gonna work on the collar tonight. And then I've also been working on this. This is the, let me straighten it out. This is the Frequency sweater by Tina Say. It's a little bit hard to see. I finished the second bit of color work and I'm currently just doing some straight stockinette. And then I think I split for sleeves. But sorry, it's a bit hard to see. Ooh. Oh no, it's okay. It's a bit hard to see on these needles, but so the main color, this pink here, a little bit left. This is Itobito knits, and on the, I think like a superwash merino sock base, and this is the colorway Mocha Chocolate. And I really love how, let me see, speckly it is, but it's still like really subtle, but not. I don't know, I just, these little pops of like bright orange really make me happy. And then the CC is this. This is Akara Yarns, Dendritic Agate. This was the main color from her 2021 advent calendar, and these work so well together. I love it. This is a fingering weight sweater, so I'm knitting with size US 4 needles. I am knitting the size 3, I believe. I'm knitting the US size, not US size 3, the size 3, but I also modded it so that there are less increases. So it's a bit like a US, but I keep saying US. It's a bit more like a size 2.5 because I opted for less decreases because I noticed in the pattern that it gets really wrinkly, or like it kind of looks as though that there are too many increases in too short of a, what do you call, like too many increases too quickly, which causes it to ripple. And also it makes it this kind of one by one, not one by one, but this kind of, yeah, like one by one color work kind of makes it look wrinkly as well. I'm sure it'll block out during blocking, but it did kind of look like there was too many increases, and I didn't need that many increases because a US size 3 was a little bit larger than I think if I wasn't concerned about the increases, I would have chosen a size 2. But because I chose a size 3 and then decided to have less increases in the yoke. And so that's what I'm doing. So it's a bit of a 2.5, my own version. So that's going well. And I wanted it to be a little bit more oversized because I wanted it to be kind of like a loose fitting spring top type of thing. So this will be a short sleeve top. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it'd be really nice to have for springtime. It's a really pretty dusty rose color. Talking. So yeah, it's a lovely dusty rose color. So I'm excited to have it for spring. And then also I'm hoping to split for sleeves and everything before the baby's here. I have like a bunch of stuff I want to get done before the baby's here because I want to just be able to, if I am able to knit, hopefully, I mean, I'm thinking I won't have time to knit, but if I did have time to knit, it would be really nice to just be able to knit in stockinette stitch in the round, just as a mindless knit. So that is the plan. Oh, and it's currently living in project bag made by Laura of Tiny Human Knit. She gifted this to me and it works perfectly with my springtime project. So that is that. Another WIP that I've kind of been working on, but it's just this loop here. This is just my next train / waiting room work in progress. It's just a regular ribbed beanie. I always get questions about it when I post about the ribbed beanies I make for Tim on Instagram. I'll put a picture up of the last one I made. It was this olive colored one, but he requested a black one. I know, black yarn, but because I love him, I agreed. So not the most exciting knit in the world, but it works for when I'm in the waiting room or when I'm just on the train. So I just use the Pearl Soho free pattern basic rib beanie, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So that is that. And this is living in my Aria and Bar. This is a sock project bag. It's called Aria and Bar. It's got this really cute foxes on it. They're an Etsy shop. And then I have one more, like, I haven't started on yet, but I'm planning on casting on soon, or at least just to get the ball rolling on it, is my hospital knit. So here in Japan, when you give birth, you stay in the hospital. If you're a first-time mom, you stay in the hospital for 5 days. So I'm not sure how busy I'll be or what. Well, I kind of know what the schedule is going to be like, but I'm not sure how much time will be spent resting or, you know, just chilling out in your room. So anyways, I thought I'd bring knitting because just in case. So I caked up some yarn in preparation because I had to get my delivery bag ready and like my hospital bags ready. So I thought I would get the yarn ready too. trying to be prepared. But I have this, 2 skeins of this, 1 skein of this. But this is the Fiber Co. Amble. I forgot the colorway name, so I'll just put it in the screen. It's really pretty chocolate brown. And this Kid Silk Mohair, Kid Silk lace. This is from Wall Collection. I totally forgot, like I don't have the ball band anymore, but I'll write it in here. But I know this is the Gobi colorway. But I'm planning on using these to make the Bennett Sister shawl by who? I don't remember the designer name. I'll write it down below. But I'm planning on knitting the Bennett Sister shawl because it looks quite a simple, mindless knit. Looks like it's mostly just garter and some textures, very simple textures. So I think that would be a good project to just have just in case. I put it in this project bag. This is a project bag by Tiara of the Love Stitch Knits. She makes these beautiful project bags and also she dyes yarn. So highly recommend her. I'll link her down below. But this will be going with me to the hospital, so I want to get maybe like at least a couple inches knit up so that I kind of have like a start to it before I pack it away into my hospital bag. So this is not really a WIP, but it's gonna be a WIP, so I thought I'd show you. But I do have one more WIP that's not knitting related, but you have seen quite a number of times, and it's this quilt. I finally finished quilting it. So let me get up and show you real quick. So here's the front. I'm not sure if you can see it properly. Yeah, you can kind of see it. And then here's the back. So I finished quilting it. So let's see, the quilt top is just regular Japanese cotton. The pattern is by Toad and Sew. It is called the Welcome Home quilt, and this is the baby size version of the quilt, and it's actually a free pattern if you sign up for their newsletter. So yeah, the front is just regular quilting cotton, regular cotton. The back is I stitched together from vintage fabric scraps that I got from a vintage flea market in Tokyo. These are all kind of indigo dyed fabrics, and yeah, so these are all vintage. Sorry, I have to sneeze. But yeah, finished hand quilting it. I quilted it using sashiko thread. So it's like this thicker, it's not like regular quilters thread, like Western quilters thread. This is like a Japanese quilting thread, I guess you could say, embroidery thread. It's a bit different from what you would see as embroidery thread in the States or in Europe, I guess. Instead of being able to split the plies quite easily, like in like DMC embroidery thread, this one, sashiko thread, is actually plied together, so it's quite tough. So that is all done. I just have to obviously trim and then do the binding, then I'll be done. So yeah, really enjoyed quilting it, but I'm definitely not a quilter just because I'm a knitter. I'm like, it was really hard for me to split time between quilting and knitting because I would prefer to knit, but I really did want to finish this quilt, and I'm also super proud of it. I'm really happy with it, but yeah, I don't think I would be doing it recreationally. It was a labor of love. Like, props to quilters out there because it takes so long. I'm also sure, like, if I quilted it by machine, it would have been a lot easier, but yeah, I wanted to hand quilt it because it's for, oh, did I mention it's for the baby? So this is his baby blanket. Hopefully he enjoys it for many years to come. So that is that. I think that's it. I am expecting a package today for some yarn that I ordered, but I thought if this was just a good time to film, so maybe I'll show that to you next time. But yeah, I think that's it. I don't have any other acquisitions or anything. Thanks for sticking around and hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed seeing all my WIPS and FOs. I hope you're glad that I didn't cast anything unintentional on. You know, trying to finish some stuff, which is good. But yeah, I hope you're all doing well. I hope that springtime allergies isn't hitting you too bad if you do get that. Tim gets that really badly. He's been sneezing a lot and sniffling, so if you have springtime allergies, I hope that it's not getting you too badly. I hope that if it's getting warmer where you are, that you're enjoying the sunshine and knitting and crafting or crocheting. Please let me know what you've been working on while you're watching, or whatever you've just been working on in general. I do enjoy seeing what you've been making because it gets me inspired to make all the things as well. So yeah, I'm not sure if this is gonna be the last one or if I'll have another podcast after this before the baby comes, but yeah, thanks for sticking around and watching and hanging out with me. Yeah, thanks so much, and I hope you're all well and healthy. Thanks. See you later. Bye.